with privatization, the service level should improve. That is what the role of the TPS was expected to be. But then over a period of time, they found okay, cashless is being given, claims are being managed, but somehow that confidence in the TPS that yes, they are working for us as insurance company, ensuring our growth as well as controlling our claims, that somewhere was not mixing, merging. Some fear was happening, some doubts were sown. So certain private insurers started doing in-house processing. That is how the in-house processing by the private insurers came up as a concept. How we can control it much better in a controlled environment. Because being the owners, being the ones who are the payers, maybe we will have more empathy towards claims. And we can take certain decisions, calls, which maybe the TPAs, because of their limited efforts or maybe limited powers being given to them, may not be able to do. So that is what makes a difference for group health insurance claims. Secondly, when it comes to group health, here it's not an individual retail client. So you have to ensure that your perception remains very good, especially in the minds of those who are decision makers. And they're given that feeling of comfort and assurance that whatever was their objective of this employee health benefit plan is being achieved without losses being incurred to the insurance company. So it's a very, very small road on which the adjudicators, the claims departments, the authorization departments function. And it's double-edged sword. The moment you shift somewhere, the other edge cuts you off. So with this background, let us understand how ideally this happens. So before how this happens, you also need to understand what are the mistakes which happen. So what I'm doing is I'm starting the session with trying to tell you what mistakes happen, since you all people are at decision making, reviewing position. So what all things you can look at when you are working through TPAs or when you are going to evaluate your own teams. So adjudication is basically nothing but adding judgment. So the adjudicators are giving a judgment, a decision, whether the episode, the loss is within the purview of the terms and conditions for which the contract is signed. And that judgment once added, it is adjudication. But errors happen here. And it is these errors which cost to everyone, the corporate as well as the insurer. So that is why I am trying to show you some case study report which we have had from analytics verticals. So what we generally find is if the claims are to be controlled, then such errors have to be prevented. That is the whole intention for showing this particular slide as the first slide. Okay, let us start with what is in your hand to monitor and control, because you are not actually doing that adjudication. So very first aspect which comes up is for how many number of days the persons are actually in hospital and what is being paid for. We have witnessed discrepancies in the data which is big. I have worked in the hospital setups as well. So hospitals have auto billing softwares. They put an entry, they don't care. Actual hota hai, nahi hota hai. And automatically the billings happen and the insurance companies also end up paying without actually checking how many days the person was, what kind of room accommodation the person was in. There are no evidences, pre-post hospitalizations or post-operative photographs to prove that certain services have been given, and still claims get passed. We find patients are unnecessarily kept in ICUs so that the package rates could be inflated. You have PPN package, but then this excludes ICU setups in most of the cases beyond a certain limit. So keep the patient in ICU. We come across claims where everything is in same handwriting. So as an assistant manager of the health department or a claims department, am I not having time of say 15 minutes to 20 minutes to simply go to any TPA portal and randomly pick up any claim file from the portal and just see it? The moment we start doing it, at least we'll find one error, one abuse, one overpayment per week. and we can add a value to our business, reduce the costs. There are no investigation reports which are signed by doctors. So it's very easy to capture, but itna sara load hai, it gets passed. Stay is there, but no justification for that stay. Because if I am having justification for the stay, then my claim cost will come down. And after ICU, definitely I need a routine monitoring, because if I am in an ICU, it means I am critical. That is what intensive care unit. So the moment I am not critical, I am not requiring intensive care, I will not be in an ICU. So how is it possible that an intensive care patient within a second becomes normal and gets discharged? Not possible, right? His situation improves, he then moves to a down, say HDU or a ward, and then he requires discharge. But ho raha hai, and even we are saying okay, ho raha hai. No field investigations. The mandate is X percentage of claims have to be investigated, audited. There are suspicious cases, triggers run ho raha hai. Analytics is giving triggers. You are seeing the triggers in the Excel also. But when it comes to field investigation reports, how many of those field investigation reports, just ask yourself openly, have you seen actually? Can someone tell, have you seen any field investigation report in the last 2 months? It's an open question to everyone. Can someone please respond? Have you seen these investigation reports? See, it's an open forum. The moment we interact, I can make this topic, which is going to be an important topic, easy to digest, because I believe my objective would be, by the end of this session, your ability to look at claims has to improve a lot. And you should be able to save at least one claim cost per week. If that is achieved, then this session is successful. So have any of you seen the investigation reports actually coming in?
No, sir.
See, that is a fact. And it does not take more than 5 minutes to see any random investigation report. The TPAs have said, the insurance companies have said they have investigated 15% of the claims. They have given you Excel. How cannot we check one supporting investigation report and we can find flaws? We can have understanding also. It's not question of finding flaws. It's a question of our knowledge also building up. See, no one comes trained and perfect in understanding and managing claims. It comes to all of us with experience. So how is this experience going to come? Only when we start seeing it. So seeing it once, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, randomly nikal lo, you will also learn how documentations happen. And it will add up to our knowledge base and further help us improve. So with this background, let me now understand how do I add judgment. So what does claims people actually do? So claims people have got the bills, and based on those bills and supporting medical documentation, decisions are being taken. So let us see what kind of billing is seen in India. So you have got 4 different kinds of hospital setups, providers. You have the PPN hospitals, you have the empanel Mediclaim hospitals, then you have certain hospitals which are empaneled but for the government health insurance schemes, the mass health insurance schemes. And then you have the non-empaneled hospitals. So this is the complete verse, metaverse I will say now. Let's go with the Facebook terminology. So if you have a hospital on board, it is going to be non-empaneled hospitals as of now. So all these hospitals typically are showing to you around 5 different kinds of billing methodologies. And why understanding that is important? Because by understanding that billing methodology, I will be able to tell you by the end of the lecture how you control the costs on those bills. First foremost is very easy, very few transparent providers have this system, which is line item billing. I have touched the patient, so patient touching, patient row. So I have checked the temperature, temperature checking, each and every line item. whatever you do, you put the patient on a ventilator attachment charge. You have the monitor running, you do the oxygen checking, you say oximetry charge. Line item wise billing, transparent. Whatever you do, you bill, there is a supporting document available. Simple. Second is procedure wise billing. So, let me take an example of say central line placement. Central line placement, मतलब patient is severe and we have this catheter which is being put through the arteries in the hand and going and helping the heart. So central line. Now if it were line item wise billing, I would have got each item billed separately. Phlebotomy, then suturing, then insertion, then I'll have got a billing for catheterization, and then infusion. But in procedure wise billing, what they'll say? Central venous line placement, CVP. One single bill. So whatever are the different procedures which are happening, for each they will start billing separately. Third would be per diem wise billing, which generally we find in the mass health insurance schemes, and now in COVID, the respective state governments came out with these circulars. Per day you can bill maximum 4,000 rupees in general ward, 5,000 in ICU, blah blah blah. So per day wise billing, how much you can bill per day? This includes all the services which you are supposed to give with small asterisks, and in that asterisk you say advance this, that, not payable, and then they get added up. So even if it is per diem billing, you have a huge bill coming up. Fourth is fully loaded packages. That is what we tried with PPN. So PPN was supposed to be preferred provider networks, which over the last 10 years has now become packaged provider network. So any and every hospital which is ready to accept packages becomes a part of PPN. So it is fully loaded. Everything that you do for the patient is part of the package with certain exclusions. कि implant अलग से मिल जाएगा. And then that small opening is dissected upon by the hospitals to increase the bills. For example, PTCA. So in PTCA we say it is a fully loaded package, implant cost extra. Now the moment I have used implant cost extra, even my balloon is an implant which is a removable implant. Before I do the plasty, I am inserting the balloon, removing the block, removing the balloon back, and then putting the stent. Started billing it. High-end cost consumables not payable, separately payable. Started billing separately. Catheters, added cost. So something which on an average used to be somewhere around say 90,000 for single stent billing in general ward, average I'm talking about in 2007, package came out at say 50,000, and then all these added up costs and it ended up being 1,10,000. So here it's not the cardiologist who has earned, it's the hospital which has earned, because cardiologists were told now the bill package is less, so you'll get only 20% of the package amount. तो बेचारा cardiologist का तो loss हो गया, but hospital started earning out of it. So these are lacunae, and then you have open billing. You can bill whatever you want. So if you are my friend, I'll bill you 1,000 rupees per day. If you are my enemy, I'll bill you 10,000 rupees per day. Open billing. Whatever I want. That becomes the most riskiest billing part. Because then we have to have our health indexes in the softwares which tell us what is usual customary. We have to deduct it, and as well as ensure that we educate the claimant. This is why it is done. Difficult but required. And the situation is worsened because the number of hospitals in India is very less. So WHO says you should have 5 beds per 1,000 population. What we have is 0.7. Even in metros, it is hardly 3.5 per 1,000 population. So that is where it becomes serious. And this information we are now going to use to understand how do we control the claims cost. So there are two aspects to the claims. One is incidence rate and second is the treatment cost. So it's not that just concentrating upon treatment cost, which generally has become a trend whenever there are reviews. Your average cost is this, your average cost is this, your income claim ratios are high. But no one is touching on the incidence rate parameter. That is where the corporate profiling comes into picture. Certain corporates have got very high incidence rates. Certain corporates have low incidence rates. So we need to ensure that we are matching and concentrating upon both these aspects. Then only your total claims value, the red bar, can be managed properly. With this, let us understand how it gets managed. Because this is most important part. You all people have to be doing these things. So the very first mechanism that we generally tell to control all kinds of claim costs is manpower. You need to have right fit manpower. Right fit does not mean only highly educated, certified manpower. It has to be right fit. So it's not necessary that my dialysis claim has to be seen by a nephrologist. No. Nephrologist may not be right fit. But a person who is trained to understand what is the necessity of dialysis, what is the frequency, when it is to be given, how it is to be given, for how long it has to be given per dialysis cycle, and he is understanding all these things, then he is a right fit. Generally, we get this misnomers, okay, only doctors should be able to do the claims processing or authorizations. No. Before TPS came into existence, insurance industry was there. Health policies were being sold. They were being adjudicated upon. That time so many doctors were not working. So does it mean that the claims were not happening at that time? They were not being processed properly? No. It's proper right fitment manpower which is important. So all those who are trained in the work which they are going to be doing, and they are following a standard operating procedure, a standard manual, and have gone through all the case studies, become my right fit manpower, and such right manpower has to be deputed. So I cannot have a person who cannot speak going and visiting and doing the investigation on the field. Because when you are doing investigation on the field, you should be a good communicator. So when you are having sugar on your tongue and ice on your head, your mind has to be very sharp, your eyes have to be very strong and see what is not being shown. That becomes the right fit manpower for investigation. I cannot have a person who has no patience in customer care. Because if the person is not patient, he is not able to take down the information properly when the claim intimation is being given, then my further claim information will be wrong and I will not be able to manage the episode properly. So, deputing manpower which are appropriate for the profile is very important. That's the first and foremost activity which has to be aptly done if we are to control the claims successfully. Second is, we should have automated triggers on claims. All the TPAs have it. Insurance companies are also building their repository. New India has got a very good repository. I understand. So, this has to be automated completely. It's maybe humanly impossible for one claim to show a deviation. But when there are multiple claims historically and concurrently happening, it could be a trend which then triggers this claim is a part of that particular method. So then I accordingly adjudicate upon it. Let me give it with an example. So we have a doctor who has a nursing home and he is a OBGY specialist. So he keeps on doing hysterectomies. For some women, he does transabdominal hysterectomy. For some, he does laparoscopic hysterectomy. So my hospital name is there, my doctor name is there, my qualification name is there. I get a claim, I see the claim, he has done transabdominal hysterectomy, 3 years, no claims. Fourth year, the claim has come, so no waiting period applicable. Billing is there, 80,000 bill generated. Overall average costing of hysterectomy 80,000 in private room, I pay off. Now, this is what practically happens. But let me see at the back end what is happening now. This hospital, this doctor, laparoscopic claim 80,000, open hysterectomy claims 80,000. All claims in fourth year of the policies. See, it's triggered now. Why all claims from a particular hospital are coming in fourth year only? So it means this particular agency code or this particular doctor is procuring policies in advance for his patients for whom he knows that he will be requiring to do a hysterectomy or convincing them to do a hysterectomy 3 years down the line. So by paying small premiums over 3 years, fourth year he takes 80,000 back. Single claim, perfect documentation, post hysterectomy, histopathology report showing the fibroid, it won't come here. But the trigger, if it comes, this is a trend of this hospital, I go into details and I try to see, okay, what was the fibroid size, how much was the menorrhagia which was happening, what was the failed medical care plan which happened. So I'm going to show that something in the next slide. So was this really necessary and required? Trigger of automation. The claim has been triggered. And it should not be only on the system. It should be even on your mobile applications, especially for your group customers. The HR should get those triggers that certain things are happening in their employee database. So even they start monitoring it. The claim triggers have to be monitored with productivity. Okay, how many got triggered and productively how many came out with certain productivity. What were the employee responses who were doing the adjudication? Third aspect for controlling claims cost is beneficiary audits. You have to do your beneficiary audit. So either it could be patient satisfaction surveys or it could be actual on-bed verifications. Our experience has shown the moment you increase your audits, your claim incidences also come down and your average claim costs also come down. Because it's obvious, it creates that fear psychology among the claimants and the providers. If we do some mistake, we'll get caught and we'll lose everything. So it's a psychological effect also which brings about an improvement in your portfolio. So we have to mandate on the beneficiary audits. The hospitals have to be audited frequently. So when we were yesterday talking on data analytics and we are saying top 10% hospitals contributing to 50%, how is it not that I have had a hospital audit report of these 10% hospitals? So I as a portfolio manager would like to understand what is the utilization audit of this hospital, the infra audit of this hospital, the grading audit of this hospital, and how this hospital is complying to the. The moment these parameters come in, we understand there are lacunae or no lacunae, and how if we are a major contributor to the profit, to the functioning of the hospital, we have a more better bargaining power. And we can negotiate the costs further. So hospital audits, especially your top 10% hospital utilized hospitals, they need to be audited regularly. Your treatment audits have to happen. We just simply see the documents, request came in, no exposure applicable, no non-billing head available, pay off. But was the relevance of treatment? Was a quality care given? Where the SOPs complied with? It's become very, very common Okay, I'm giving this example slightly different from say government health insurance perspective right now, or even say group if it's a large group where you have a lot of people getting admitted for a diagnosis called as PUO, pyrexia of unknown origin. But when do we call it as PUO? Only when you have not been able to establish a causative factor for the fever and it has remained uncured even after attempts of success treatment. Then it becomes PU. So there has to be a subsequent documented history of efforts being done, treatments given, and diagnostic reports proving that it is not got any other source. And then if the hospitalization is happening because of high grade fever, getting controlled only with IV paracetamol or paracetamol, and then IV medication showing results after 2 3 days, then it means it was required. Otherwise, it is not relevant. You find claims from group policies because they are group, you don't want to antagonize the customers. There are 5 blocks and they go for angioplasty. But the standard treatment guidelines say anything above 3 blocks should ideally go for a bypass. And if still bypass is not being done, there has to be a documented opinion of a cardiovascular surgeon, CBTS surgeon, who also concurs the bypass is not suitable for you. But we don't go into all these aspects. ग्रुप पॉलिसी है, बड़ा सब इंश्योर्ड है, बड़ी पोजीशन पे है, पे इट ऑफ. But what has happened is we have increased the cost. There are something called as you do stepped angioplasties. So the person requires 3 stages. You do 1 stage today, 1 stage after 1 month, and 1 stage after 1 month. So 3 stages, 3 stages. In effect, what happens is you end up paying for the angioplasty package 3 times. While if it was done in a single sitting, it would have been only 1 time. It's not that all claims are done like that. There are certain indications for going in for a staged angioplasty, but to make profit, this is what is being done by the hospitals. So, where is that relevance of treatment, relevance of staging being monitored by us? Data analytics, very important. If you have to control claim costs, which I tried to share yesterday also, your procedure utilizations, hospital utilizations, success of the triggers, and support it with your health risk assessments. And you know what your portfolio is going to be. The standard treatment guidelines, standard treatment protocols. So, are the mandatory documents being followed? Is the gold standard of medicine and adjudication being followed or not? Standard protocols for the frequency of reports. There are certain hospitals which, as a SOP, do fasting blood sugar every day in the morning. Glucometer, with glucometer. And since they charge only 50 rupees for it, 50 रुपया तो है. We don't feel anything. But just consider a 100-bed hospital doing it for all the 100 patients every day, and they're earning 5,000 rupees per day. 1.5 lakh rupees per month. 5 employees का salary तो निकल गया इससे. Just by doing fasting blood sugar or a glucometer test every day. So you have to see whether the protocols are proper or not. And then accordingly take a call, educate the corporate client as well, HR as well, कि your employees are going to this facility, but these are the issues which have been seen with this facility. And you have to be open for all the market intelligence coming in and bring about standardization. So having standardization is very important. If you have those standardizations in place, then the claim management becomes more easy. So I'm having certain what I say things here about how standardization was started off. I'll just change the shared screen. Just a second. Uh, yeah, perfect. Yes. So, are you able to see this Excel now, which I have opened? Can someone confirm if you are able to capture, see this Excel?
No, sir, it is black. It is blackened.
It is.
Blackout is there.
It is blackout. We are not able to
Yeah.
see it properly.
Now it is visible.
Okay, now it is visible. Okay, perfect, perfect.
Yes.
So here I am showing certain examples because I want it to be very practical. So these are actual case studies. So this was about cataract. So you have this annual placements which happen, emulsification. So we had around 32 such cases in 6 months from this particular hospital, and all were around 40 to 70 years. The implant cost was ranging from 6,600 to 28,000, and professional fees was also changing from 10,000 to 24,000, and higher in Sachdeva clinic. So we started analyzing this further, and we found that the doctor is just making it a proportion of the IOL charge. As the IOL cost increases, his charges also increase. And we asked him why are you increasing? He had no reason. He had no answer. So we asked him to please refund the money, and he refunded the money back to the claimants. Shelby Hospital, a brand in itself, Dr. Vikram Shah. He is rumored to be able to do TKRs in 15 minutes, and the rest of the work is done by his assistants. So that is how he has created a big chain now. And he was the exclusive distributor for Johnson and Johnson implants in India. So exclusive distributorship. So margin further from the implant studies. These are facts which I am showing. And then his schedule of charges, he was showing 1,40,000, 1,90,000, 2,75,000. That were his schedule of charges. But the implant cost, this is before the DPC, was ranging from 55 to 1 lakh, and his professional fees were also changing. Same procedure, same location. So even he was not able to answer to it, and then we could tell him we will be deducting it further, and he will be blacklisted, and thereafter he changed the whole service levels. TKR. So what should be the standard treatment guideline for it? So where should a TKR be done? Only when there is osteoarthritis or rheumatoid or psoriatic arthritis, or there is a trauma, then only a TKR is recommended. When and how do we prove it? It will be proved only when we have this kind of a X-ray done, which shows you okay, there is a change. So this particular is the X-ray, which shows there is a substantial decrease because of arthritis. So what all treatments you have to look for? Then in the implant, which kind of implant is to be recommended? What could be the contraindication? So these are standard treatment guidelines. So implants, what will be the implant? Cemented, uncemented. So your claims manager should be able to see all these things when the claim is coming, and then he can adjudicate properly. So this is something which is very important. So I'll come to that again further. So I'll again move to the presentation mode now. So to summarize, if you have to control costs, we need good manpower, we need system triggers, we need audits of the hospital, the beneficiary, the treatment, we need analytical supports. The adjudicator has to be well versed in your standard treatment guidelines and protocols, and triggers have to be reviewed successfully, and market intelligence should be there. Then you are in a position to start controlling the costs. So let us now go into practical steps, what you do across common applications. प्रैक्टिकली देखते हैं अभी कॉमन एलिमेंट्स के लिए. So whenever a claim is coming, you try to go by this 9 matrix. First, establish the level of hospitalization, whether hospitalization was really required. Then, what was the care plan result? OP care plan. OP is outpatient. So before hospitalization. If that has failed, then what is the planned care that is going to be given as inpatient? So what is the diagnostic evidence to support that requirement? Then I go where the patient is actually admitted, is that the actual execution of the inpatient care which was proposed? What is the evidence of improvement documented in my nursing notes, in my doctor notes, in my diagnostic reports over the period of hospitalization stay? From there, I have to control my length of stay. The moment there is improvement, there should be discharge. No longer stay continuation. It's not that if I started the patient on IV taxane and the patient is cured from fever on third day, because it's a 5-day regimen, I need to continue the patient to be in hospital for taking that IV taxane again. No. There is a possibility of shifting the patient to oral medication. So shift the patient and discharge him. Next to think is whether the billing is as per the approved tariff or not. Everything has to be as per approved tariff. And finally, decide whether there is any exclusion as per the policy terms. So we had this domiciliary claims, so much of circular, government pressure, IRDA circulars, pay domiciliary claims in COVID. But we ended up paying outpatient care claims also. Because practically speaking, domiciliary means where the patient condition is such that he is not able to go to the hospital and is given a care which would have got in a hospital at his home. Or secondly, there is no hospital bed available and he is still given the care which he would have got in the hospital. It got misused because of hype, because of pressure by government entities, and even those who were not requiring hospitalized care, just because they were taking all these high cost medications, they started claiming it as a domiciliary benefit, and we ended up paying because we cannot antagonize the corporate. So practically speaking, it was not payable in majority of the cases. So the moment we start doing audits, we start understanding policy terms and conditions, we will come to the conclusion. So which are those common diseases which are a pain for corporates especially? So in conservative management, the pain areas where the abuses, where we end up paying huge costs which are preventable, where each one of you can make a difference yourself without even waiting for the TPA to act, I have highlighted. Pyrexias, that is fever, so it could be malaria, PO, dengue. So always ask where the fever was not treated on outpatient basis, how many days it was tried, and then while you are getting hospitalized, which diagnostic report is giving you the requirement to be hospitalized, and what IV medication you are taking for which there was no oral alternative available. Only when you have an affirmative answer to these questions, your pyrexia hospitalization is necessary, usual, customary, payable. Otherwise, we need to talk to the corporate HR. This is something which is going wrong. Respiratory tract infections. COVID-19 is a gold standard, but we also had pneumonia, bronchitis, asthma. Same questions come here. How has it been prevented? How was it not possible to be controlled on outpatient basis? Was there breathlessness? Was the oxygen saturation coming down drastically? Was the necessity of hospitalization established for oxygen supplementation or ventilatory support? Then it is there. Urinary tract infection, very abused, especially in corporate policies. Because we generally have pre-existing covered and certain individuals in corporates do have this predisposing diabetes mellitus. So UTI is very common with them. And they know UTI है तो खर्चा आएगा ही. because they also take this insulin and other expenses and they get themselves hospitalized while they should have controlled it with proper care and oral medication. Acute gastroenteritis, bouts of diarrhea, loose motions. But then, was it tried to be controlled on outpatient basis? What were your efforts of oral supplementation, oral fluid replacement therapies, ORTs, and how they failed? Whether there was dehydration, which is seen over physical examination, documented by the hospital, and then only you require hospitalization for IV metronidazole, IV RL being given, rigalactate, normal saline, DNS, to control your nutritional imbalance, to control your electrolyte imbalance which has set in. Otherwise, it's not required. So, if you are passing claims of acute gastroenteritis without electrolyte reports being seen, then you are making a sin. So, I am using two sin here. One is sin to see and another is sin which is a mistake. So, start auditing such small claims. A claim per day, huge savings, guaranteed, assured. Gastritis, you have this severe burning pain, you are not able to handle that pain. You go to the ER, you get admitted. But actually, what is required is you go to the ER, he gives you IV Rantac, antihistaminic, the pain is relieved. But if you are an insured person, admit to a job, we'll have to investigate this investigation, that investigation to find the cause. And no cause, idiopathic, discharge, but huge bill. Strokes, 99.9% are genuine. But what is required to be observed in such cases is what was my door to needle time. Door to needle time is the moment the patient reports to the hospital and how fast I have given him the enzyme. Well, that is the only thing which will control further deterioration in the patient. So if my DT, door to needle time is in days, it means it's a staged documentation, marriage documentation. Practically कोई भी neurologist wait नहीं करेगा ये report वो report. The moment he feels it is a stroke, fast MRI, proven, immediate infusion within that golden hour. Are we as adjudicators, are we as auditors, are we as portfolio managers trying to look at this care plan quality or not? It's a question. Because the moment we start looking to all these things, automatically the abuses and the costs will come down drastically. And even the corporates will feel good. Okay, you are also looking at good medical care for my employees. And even the employee will be happy. Okay, they have ensured I get only what is required and necessary and not unnecessary. Myocardial infarction, chemotherapy, same thing happened. Because if it was only IV infusion charge and the drug charge to be given, the hospital would not have earned anything. So they have created chemotherapy packages separately. So is it required? Is it mandated? Can I not have my patient referred to a location where I can have preferential billing for chemotherapy? Because finally this is a planned treatment. In all the above, except for stroke and MI, everything is planned. So my customer care has to be the one who should have directed them to a nearby pop and pop clinic or nearby preferred provider on the basis of quality of care and rates. For my group policies, the moment I know their locations, have I identified those preferred providers for my group policy holders in that location? That has to be the first month review. The enrollment data is shared. Now let us know what is your preferred providers in these locations and how you are intimating it to the corporate. So to summarize, what is important is need for hospitalization, care plan, diagnostic evidence, execution as per care plan, then length of stay monitoring and then billing as per tariff. The moment you concentrate on all these things for conservative claims, they will be controlled. It is told that COVID-19 in general across the industry was having an average billing of somewhere around 1,20,000. I have experience of an average claim size of less than 90,000 because all such mechanisms were implemented. Coming to surgical claims, what is important is you have to look at the diagnostic evidence of the necessity of that surgery, your OT notes documenting actually that surgery done, and then an operative evidence that that surgery is done. Because many a times, even in group policies, adjustments are done, upcodings are happening, unbundlings are happening. So something which could have been managed with only one surgical code billing, you will find multiple surgical codes being billed as per tariff, as per documentation. But your adjudication, your doctors, whoever is your claims reviewer, has to understand that this surgery would require this treatment, this protocol, and for this is the surgery which is available, and that surgery would come under this costing, and I will save the costs. Whether it is required or not required, as we saw in that cataract TKR example a couple of minutes ago, establishment of the necessities. Fractures very commonly claimed. So have we established whether it requires closed reduction, open reduction, whether there was only fixation or it was internal fixation? What kind of implant is being used, whether that implant is necessary, and whether the billing of the implant is as per the rates for the implants. So that is why we have started this since last 10-15 years to ask for stickers of all implants. Not to know that it is done. No. The intention is that you capture the serial numbers of the stickers, create a database, and see whether it is being misused for same serial number implant in multiple patients, and what is the costing of that serial numbered implant. So you have this database created to control the costs, because that is an area which is being built extra miles. That is the intention behind those implant stickers being required. Second benefit, actual number of implants being used. 6K wires built, but actually only 2 used. Implant is proving, X-ray is proving. So why should I pay for 6? So these are the necessities, having that operative evidence, having those OT notes, and having that diagnostic evidence of the necessity. We need to look at those aspects from surgical claims. So this is case study. I will just go through it. I am sharing. I have already shared this document with you people. So what is indication for dialysis? So this is all theory. But what I wanted to concentrate upon for dialysis claims is for all pre-hospitalization, that is pre-authorization level, you should be asking for clinical notes. Why that dialysis is required, what the frequency of that dialysis is going to be, whether it is once a week, twice a week, thrice a week, and having a documentation of evidence that dialysis is required. So your serum create levels are very low. So those will help you to understand the necessity, and then post discharge you require the dialysis charts. Does anyone have any questions before I go to the next part? If there are no questions, we'll move to the next part of the discussions. I hope I'm not going over that. Yeah, I'm still in time. So let us now understand further how the costs are going to be affected. So this is how the hospitals used to be in the past and how they are now 5-star facilities. So definitely there is an increase. So what has affected the claims cost in groups? Group claims is basically your manpower expertise, your equipment and investigation costs which have gone up, your drugs and consumables which are being built, the infrastructural costs, the advanced technologies, and then the moral behavior. So in group policies we feel moral behavior is not an issue, but yes, that is a substantial burden of moral behavior even in group claims. So how do we handle them? So first and foremost, again I am giving you a 5-step ladder. having operational definitions of what is going to be built under what head. So when do we say operation theatre, what are going to be charges which are going to be billed? Because we can then cut down on those costs by talking to the doctors. Your adjudication guidelines have to be streamlined for multiple procedures, regimens of chemotherapies, ventilatory procedures, what to do with failed procedures, transfer cases. The formats of your investigation reports or even notes have to be standardized because then that will help you in capturing the deviations properly. Maybe at times we ask for reporting of imaging or biochemistry as well. Provider factors we control by having outcome-based billing versus what we currently have as a fee for service. So for large corporates where they are going to a particular provider only, many TPAs have done this successfully. Specialized differential billing for them. Having billing codes compulsorily asked for electronic health records. And then from beneficiary angle, you should always ask for CSATs for quality of service billing if they are aware of any fraudulency or overbilling. And you should give them teleconsultation by the in-house doctors. Now, what are the different billing heads and how we control them? So, length of stay is definitely going to be variable as per the patient condition. Overall average is 1 to 3 days for conservative claims and surgical it is around 3 to 5 days. So, how we control it is by medical management. So, we apply usual and customary, we have case management services and we monitor how soon the patient is fit to be discharged. Room rates will be costing around 25 to 30% of a conservative bill and 50 to 20% of surgical bill. Here what we can ask for is discounts to reduce the bill. With professional fees, be it doctor consultation or the surgeon charges, where in conservative it is going to be 15%, in surgical it is going to be 5 to 10%, the visit charges. But then my surgical cost increases 35 to 40%. Here what we do is, we bill as per actual visits only. Not that you are in hospital for 5 days, so 2 days or 2 visits per day is agreed tariff, so I pay 2 visits every day, 10 visits. No. We pay actual incidence wise. Medicines and implants, we have to ask for discounts and we have to ask for again medical management, how we can have usual customary billing built, how we can ensure that not every time OEM is used, research molecule is used. Then we can control the cost further. Investigations, we need to ask for further discounts. Advancements, robotics, which now have been mandated to be paid. So here we have to go for usual customary whether that robotic was required or not required. So all this is possible when you have a strong medical management team, which will negotiate with hospitals on real-time basis during cashless itself. And if it is reimbursement, where the patient is in hospital. So their targets are 4 which we are given to them, to the medical management team. One, they have to control the length of stay for all the acute conditions and conservative claims. So if the software is showing an average size of say 3 days, they have to ensure that the patient is monitored on second day and third day, and they speak to the consultant, and the moment they speak, the consultant also feels this is being monitored, so better to discharge the patient. Second objective is to prevent the OP to IP conversion, which is very common in group policies. Someone who could be treated on outpatient is being admitted, so that is being monitored. Third is comorbidity claims. So you have standard package procedures, but then comorbidity billing is being done. So whether that comorbidity actually required the hospitalized care, further investigations not required. So you start monitoring it. The medical management team has got this third target. And the fourth target is they have to be limiting the use of pharmacy on necessity basis. When COVID-19 struck, hospitals were started billing so many PPE kits for each patient. 4 doctors, 4 times 4 different employees are visiting, so bill 4 times per day. But then for each patient, same PPE kit was not change, na? Making money. So you have to limit the pharmacy usage. You find so many syringes are being built, 2 ml, 5 ml, 10 ml, 20 ml, 50 ml in surgical cases. How many were actually required as per the IV infusion which was given? Limit the pharmacy usage. Generally, such medical management teams will be composed of MD or at least an MBBS doctor with 10 to 15 years of experience. And they will be having other team members of MBBS doctors and some employees to visit the hospitals. So this is how this medical management team functions and controls costs on a real-time basis. And to support them, you have the provider networking team. See, why we want cashless percentage to increase? Because provider networking team have pre-negotiated the schedule of charges. And when they have negotiated, they have got a clause agreed that even for reimbursement, same charges will apply. So if you are billing more, you will pay less and you pay it back to the patient. Additionally, they have got discounts for non-package procedures. And for all the new technologies coming in, fresh negotiations happen. So the role of provider networking team is very strong here. And they monitor how much of the patient flow is being generated by them so that their bargaining power remains. And they have to highlight which are those preferred providers where the costings are less in a particular location. So if enquiries come and first month of the group policy review is happening, the person who is going for the review to the insurance company shares the list of these preferred doctors, preferred hospitals, where the cost will be less and quality of care will be high. So when we function together like this, the 100% the claims cost come down. In addition, these are the different tools which are there. So you have database of procedures, providers, drugs, implants, program inclusions. You also monitor the cost of living index, morbidities, demographics. So all these things are there. And triggers we keep on monitoring. So when all these things are simultaneously happening, then the costs come down successfully. So this is radiotherapy again theory which I have shared. So to summarize now, this is how we found that the costs are increasing, especially in COVID times. The ICRs have been going in for toss in group policies. So you had the COVID addition, that's but obvious. The incidences of medical claims have increased. The age groups have been adverse in most of the cases. And the planned treatments which are fixed cost, they have been postponed. So all this has affected the incidence rate. My matrix has gone for a toss. And then my treatment costs have been affected. Because fixed surgery cost claims have gone down, variable cost claims, conservative claims have increased. The length of stays have increased. Room, ICU, nursing, they have increased. Diagnostic costs have been increased. Pharmacy and consumable costs have increased over the last couple of years. And as a result, there is an overall increase in costs. So all this put together, the incidence as well as the cost have resulted into a total claims value which is burgeoning. So how do we now control the cost? I am just summarizing. So one, you have to concentrate on applying the usual and customary on all the claims, which is through a health index. 2, follow the standard treatment guidelines. 3, look at the standardization of the MRP of implants and high-end medications and apply suitable PTR rates for them before making payments. 4, policy terms and conditions have to be strictly monitored. 5th, standardize the billing patterns as much as you can. 6th, direct the patients to the PPN. 7, control the fraud and abuse. So in fact, I'm highlighting it on the right side separately. You should ask for minimum 10% hit rate for the investigations. And on reimbursement cases, more than 30% should be investigated in corporates. You get very good results. Start giving recommendation to underwriting based on the risk assessment. So even if you are managing claims, your recommendations to underwriting have to be there. Have online verification from hospitals, on-bed photos, mystery calling, have sharing of complete repository of flag and blacklisted hospitals. Implement case management, care management, which we saw yesterday in the discussions. And since it is not a big cost, please give the wellness bouquet. There are so many things in wellness which can be given, which will reduce the incidence rate. And if the incidence rate is coming down, the claim cost definitely is going to come down. So it could be as simple as online health risk assessment and recommendation or health screening programs. Let there be OP and specialty consultation online. If you are a TPA who is a big TPA, the hospitals will provide you free consultation services, teleconsultation services. Have chronic condition management programs or counseling programs for chronic diseases. If the corporate agrees, implement on-site wellness programs on paid basis. For employee care, start sharing health tips, newsletters. They will also feel wanted, they will also feel cared. Wellness checkups can be done. Health talk sessions can be arranged, especially on ergonomics, stress management. Nearly 35 to 40% of the hospitalizations are today only because of stress. Because it reduces the immunity and you start getting the other ailments. So controlling stress can be a good solution to control the claim cost. Promote fitness activities. Being in a bargaining position, the TPAs, the insurance companies, they can get so many discount vouchers and health coupons. Pass it on to the corporates. Have live Zumba sessions, nutrition sessions on nutrition, healthy cookings. Have posters on seasonal diseases. I'll go to the extent to have a wellness calendar published. Because the moment you concentrate on wellness, you prevent your hospitalization. You prevent the hospitalization automatically, your claims are low and your profit is higher. So this is the most important takeaway slide of the discussion today. Have all your TPAs do this, especially for your important clients, and see the result. The premium rates can come down substantially by 5 to 10% minimum over a period of 1 year to 2 years with these customized control mechanisms. So I keep the session open for question answers on claims management now. So if you have got any kind of a question, please ask them. So the session is open. If you have any questions, please do ask them. We are just little ahead of time. I apologize for that. If there are no questions, can we close the session, ma'am? Hello? Yes, ma'am.